watching and listening to Conscious Evolution Media, shifting global consciousness at consciousevolutionmedia.com.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Kids Talk Foundation, a global nonprofit organization providing youth advocacy, television programming, and training services in the United States, along with comprehensive medical and educational services for the developing world, most recently in Kenya, Africa, where Kids Talk Foundation provides a feeding program, medical care, and educational services to over 1,300 young people each day. Please help our youth and place your donation. Go to www.kidstalk.org. Are you in the entertainment industry? If you answered yes and you want to promote yourself, your passion, and profession, check out Creative Independent Artist magazines at CIAartists.com. Endorsed by Kids Talk Foundation worldwide. You can hear shows from Real Coaching Radio TV network while on the go with Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher is a free news and talk mobile app available for your smartphones, smart TVs, and cars. And when you download Stitcher to hear shows from Real Coaching Radio TV network, you have a chance to win some money. Downloading is quick and easy. Just find Stitcher in the App Store. Download it. It's free and just takes a few seconds. Then, during registration, hit the promo code box and enter RCRN to get automatically entered to win $100. The latest episode of the shows will be waiting for you in your favorites. You'll get access to lots of other amazing shows too. Always available to you on demand. No syncing. It's Stitcher Smart Radio. Don't forget to enter promo code RCRN when you register at www.stitcher.com/RCRN.
Okay, welcome again to Your Money and Your Mindset. My name is Lo Wai Tan and I am your host. And once again, we are here to talk about what goes on between your ears makes a big difference to how your bank account looks, how your relationships are, and how much health you have. So I'd like to welcome everybody. Welcome Stickam, Blog TV, Real Coaching Radio TV Network, Receiver, Internet Radio, Radio Roku, New Media Radio, and our partner Stitcher. You're watching this on your smartphone. Good on you. Okay, we're getting into the last week thereabouts of January, and everything is go, 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 go. However, in the midst of all that business, where I think we can get so busy with stuff, we need to center ourselves, get a sense of who we are in order to achieve our goals and accomplish what we want to do. And I believe that we can have it all, okay? You can have the money, you can have the happy relationships, you can have the good health. But most of all, you can have that sense of knowing that you're doing what you want to do and what you're supposed to do in your life. And to get to that point, it's a case of getting to know yourself first and foremost. Most of ourselves, right? If you think you haven't got time to go sit under the tree and contemplate your navel and say, you know, what is the meaning of life? What am I supposed to do on this earth? Well, I'm going to bring on this guest who basically found out for herself. And she kind of found out this insight in quite a hard way. It's a heartwarming story, but I'd like to bring on my guest, who is Dina Proctor today, who's written this amazing book called Madly Chasing Peace, How I Went From Hell to Happy in 9 minutes a day. There you go, instant success. Now, I'm just going to give you a very brief bio about Dina, because I think, you know, coming from her, it's so genuine. You will be nothing but inspired. And you will be leaving this show with what you need to get yourself in the right headspace and the heart space to do what you're supposed to do in life. So she is also the author of this book, but also a coach and a speaker. And she speaks from personal experience, having to struggle with food addiction, depression, and the like, to finding out her 9 minutes to happiness. So welcome, Dina Proctor. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I'm doing great. Doing great.
Ooh, we are excited. Now, look, this book called Madly Chasing Peace, it's kind of like a contradiction in terms. How do you run after peace? It's like a road runner kind of thing. But but the thing is that you started from a place that was as far away as possible from this. But before that, we want to know who you are really.
Yeah, well, I can share with you just in a nutshell, and I'm happy to go into my story if you feel that would be helpful for listeners. But today, just for the last couple of years, I'm an author. My book came out just a couple weeks ago, and it already hit bestseller, which is amazing. I've been getting great feedback, I know, around the world. It's exciting. It's really great. And nowadays, for the last over a year or so, I've been what I call a mind-body connection coach. I help people connect the dots to be able to, get the physical experiences that they want in their life by changing their mindset and getting in touch with that inner power source and that inner intuitive, component that we all have access to, but a lot of people don't know how to quiet the mind chatter and get in tune with that, and get off track and are just surviving but not thriving, I've noticed. So that's what I do in my coaching practice, and then my writing, and I've been taking my message to speaking to groups too, which is really fun. It's so amazing to connect with a group of people who you don't know that you don't know their stories, but to share from your heart and see them light up and get excited and get ideas and get inspired is amazing. I mean, there's nothing more fulfilling than being able to share my truth and my experience and seeing other people get uplifted from that.
Fantastic, because I think right now a lot of people need a bit of a shot in the arm, because even though the GFC was in 2008, and let's face it, when most people will say money stress is one of the biggest stresses they have in their lives, being unable to meet their bills, or as in the case of people losing their jobs. So you're basically coming along and saying that, okay, especially in this time when you are stressed and you've got all these external pressures, this is the time to learn how to turn inwards to get that sense of stillness and peace. And from what I gather from what you're saying, it's also that inner sense of conviction and strength to go out and do stuff that you would otherwise be too frightened to do, yeah?
Yeah, that's true. And I think I had what people it sounds weird, but they call it the gift of desperation. And the reason that desperation is a gift is because you're pinched to the point where you have no other option. You either withdraw from the world altogether, or you get to the point where you figure out how to manage your internal life. When I hit rock bottom in my life, I was drinking around the clock. There were 2 years that I had constant alcohol in my bloodstream. Like I was just so dependent on that substance. I couldn't get out of bed without that. I was in a horrible depression. I was wishing I wouldn't wake up in the morning, and I actually planned a date to take my own life because I had tried everything over the years. There were over 10 years that I was in a state of depression, and I tried medications and therapies and group therapies, and I changed boyfriends, I changed apartments, I moved cities, I changed jobs. There's nothing I didn't change in trying to fix myself. And the whole time, that's why I called my book Madly Chasing Peace, because I just felt like if I could find peace, if someone could just give me peace, I wouldn't have to worry about any of this. And, the whole thing I was trying to do was manipulate my circumstances, because I thought if I just find that perfect job, if I just find that perfect guy, or I just make that perfect income, everything else will fall into place. And it's not until you fall into place internally that your outside circumstances can come to mirror that. So, I don't think anybody has to hit rock bottom before you start climbing up. That's not been my experience with clients. But for me, it ended up being a true, looking back in hindsight, it was horrible to going through it, but it was a gift to have that desperation, because I was pinched to the point where I was completely open to any and all ideas. And that's where I was able to kind of give birth to the process that I use now to keep myself centered, and, how I coach my clients and stuff.
Okay, before we get into the mechanics of it, and, you'll explain that to us, I just to share your story. This is not sensationalizing it, but I think a lot of people can relate to what you're saying, especially when you talk about. I've had a brief look at the first chapter of your book, and basically your upbringing was one where a lot of opinions about yourself were formed based on your interpretation of events as a kid, yeah? And a lot of people will probably have that in their background without realizing how much of an influence it is on the way they behave today, the way they think, the way the way they make money or don't make money, or are happy or not happy. So can you just share a bit more with us, please?
Oh yeah, sure, of course. I think it's I took psychology classes when I was in college, and I remember the professor telling us that most people make like two decisions when they're very young in formative years, from when they're as early as 3-4 years old until they're 10-12 years old, and a couple circumstances or situations happen, and in that moment we make a decision about how the world works or about what we think about life, and we live our lives from that point forward with that focus of mindset. So one of them for me, I remember when I was pretty young, I was in the car driving with my mom, and my little sisters were in the back, and my mom was not a person who cried, and she was crying as she was driving, and I was sitting in the front seat, and I was the oldest child, and she just burst into tears and had to pull the car over to regain her composure. And I remember just asking her, I was shocked because my mom was a superhero to me. My mom was not a person who cried. And I remember looking over at her and saying, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And she was just repeating over and over to herself, like, "I don't know what to do. Just tell me what to do. Show me what to do. I don't know what to do." And she was talking to herself, or maybe to God, I don't know. But I thought she was asking me for the answer because I was the oldest and I was the one sitting next to her. So, and it pained me so much to see her in that amount, that she was struggling so badly. And she regained her composure within 5 minutes, but I had already made the decision that, one, I would never do anything to upset my mother ever. And two, I decided that I needed to have all the answers for anybody who ever has a question in their life, so I just I morphed into super kid, and I decided that I was going to take care of myself. I was going to have the answers for everybody, and I was going to be this perfect human being. So it's just an example of a way that you can trace back a certain way that you've acted or behaved, or a mindset that you've had that can be traced back to, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago when you make that decision. And, most times those paradigms, we don't question them. They're just become part of the fabric of our character. And we can live for years and not even realize the correlation there, and that we made that decision as a child, and it might not necessarily serve us anymore.
Wow, that's pretty heavy-duty stuff for a kid to take on, and then assume that responsibility, that mantle of responsibility, and then feel that you had to live up to perfection, which included being a straight-A student at school.
Yeah, because I liked when people were happy, and I liked being the source of that happiness. So I was like total people pleaser all the way. I was all about the straight A grades. I was all about being as helpful as I could and pleasing as many people as I could, especially adults that could pat me on the back. I loved hearing what a good kid I was. I loved hearing, what good grades I got, how smart I was. Loved that. I lived for that.
Okay, and then that is okay to a certain point, I suppose, because it helps with our self-esteem. But that turned into a double-edged sword for you, because you went off to do things like non-profit for a long time, almost as though you're sacrificing yourself and putting your own needs on hold. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what it turned out to be for me. I realized when I went away to college, when I was no longer around just my family and my old habits, I mixed up my environment for the first time. And when I went away to college, I realized that my way of doing things was not as normal as most people. I needed to have things a certain way before I went to sleep at night, very perfectionist. But I also had this, I guess you could say, addictive behavior quality. Like if I wanted to do something, I had to be full out. Someone once told me that my motto was, if it's good, back the truck up, because if it's good, I don't want a little bit, I want a whole lot of it. So if I would eat, birthday cake at a party, I would have a sugar craving and then have to, satisfy that later and go binge out on sugar or food. Or if I would watch a movie with one of my roommates, we would enjoy the movie and my roommate would go off to bed, but I would have to keep watching, like it just had whatever was filling me up at the time. I had to have more and more and more. And I had this like empty hole inside of myself because I didn't have any self-esteem. I was living for pleasing people. I didn't have my own sense of power, my own sense of self-worth. And that's where my difference, lied between other people. And I didn't realize that was the problem at the time, but that was what was driving. It's like I kind of picture it how each one of us has a power cord that we plug into our internal power source, whether you call it the spirit of the universe or God source or universal energy. It's like that's where our power comes from. And it's like when you travel and you take your hairdryer to a foreign country and it won't plug into the outlet. That's what I was doing, because the outlet can only plug into, it's only made to plug into that universal God source energy. But I was plugging it into men and food and booze, and like I was plugging it into all these things that wouldn't work, and therefore they didn't fix me because it wasn't the power that I needed. It was always just kind of a quick fix or a self-soothing type of thing. So yeah, it got to the point where I thought that if I could fix enough people, I could fill up myself, and that's why I got obsessed with volunteering and going to other countries in South America and Africa. And when I was doing a full-time nonprofit, I was volunteering with 6 other organizations while I was working full-time at a shelter, because I just felt like it wasn't as satisfying as I thought it would be. And the reason wasn't because I wasn't doing the work, that I wasn't helping people. The reason was because I wasn't giving from a place of abundance and connection. I was giving in order to fill myself up. So it was kind of backwards. It's funny because now in my life, when I coach people, that's what I'm doing. I'm giving from my place of connection, and there's nothing more fulfilling than that. So like I was kind of on the right track with it, but going about it the wrong way, and I was in complete disconnection and, in and out of depression. So it didn't work. But now being of service to others is immensely fulfilling to me. Does that make sense?
The way, yeah, it does. And the way you speak about it so candidly, thank you very much, because I think a lot of people need to hear this, especially people who are told, chin up, you live, or something like, why are you feeling down? You live in one of the richest countries in the world, what do you have to be sad about? When actually it's an internal sense of looking. Is it basically you're saying I was looking for myself?
Yeah, you could say that. And what I would call it now is, the best of me, my best self. It's not just my ego, personality, identity type of thing, or even just my career passion, which I have now and I'd never had before. That's not it. It's connection to that highest self. Like I say, my motto every day is that my goal or my mission statement is to be the fullest expression of my innermost self in my physical form. Because I believe that we are an eternal energy being, so when we die in the physical life, it's almost like we just kind of withdraw consciousness from the body and continue to live on. So I believe that as much as we can remember that, and remember that we are part of the energy source that's animating and directing our lives here, and letting that source flow through us and direct the show as much as possible, it makes life more effortless, and we start to understand the importance of our intuition, our intuitive feelings, or those inspired ideas that seem to come from nowhere and might be kind of crazy. Maybe there's something to them, I don't mean to sound all woo-woo, because it's actually a very grounded, centered space, that I live in. But for me, it's extremely real that it's a universal energy source animating my physical body.
Yes, I agree with you there, and I believe that our best ideas come from I guess a special connection with Source, God, whatever you want to call it, that, and also because the show is your money and your mindset. A lot of people here will be looking at means of basically generating more income, bringing in another revenue stream, or thinking of the next bright idea and so forth. And really what you have said is don't look outside as much as, or rather don't ignore your internal wisdom. So this is what we want to come and talk to you about, which is the way you did it. Now, understanding that we all live, inverted commas, busy lives, okay? So at this point in time, actually, hang on a second, we've just got a comment in the chat room. Do you mind answering this question? It can be. Sure. Okay. So basically, you growing up, you were basically the smart kid, got the straight A's, and so the question is, did you have a sense of how you felt if somebody turned around and said the opposite and said you weren't that smart after all? Did you find that it sort of stung your self-esteem?
Oh yeah, it would crush me. It would crush me. Even if on some kind of offhanded thing, like if I got a B on a grade instead of an A, and yeah, I know. Oh, what a failure. But like that would even, and even more so if just the tiniest non-perfect thing happened, it would crush me if someone else would acknowledge that, a member of my family or a teacher that I trusted or a good friend in school, like, come on, you're an A. What's this? You're just kind of slipping or something. It killed me. It absolutely did. So I lived for the validation, and that's what I was looking for, to validate. Like that's why I did all the nonprofit stuff and everything. And my heart, I wasn't on the wrong track, but I was just kind of using it for the wrong reason. If you get what I mean. It was like I just thought if I can please enough people and help enough people, that will fill me up. But I realize now that until I find my own power source, I don't really have something to give to another person anyway, to be able to uplift them in a meaningful way. Like, yes, I can bring them food or, give them shelter or clothes or anything. But the long term is the relationship, the long term, the thing that's going to last past just a meal is giving someone hope or being able to uplift them. And I could never have given that before. And that's what I can give now.
Yeah, thanks for answering that question. So let's go back to what we're talking about. And basically, because we live such busy lives, you look at people around you in any city, they're walking with their heads down, looking at their iPhone, or they've got pods in their ears and are doing their thing, is that there is no time, or they feel there's no time to just be still and be quiet, okay? And you have worked it out how you can do this at a maximum of 3 minutes at a sitting. Yeah. Right? Only 3 minutes. Come on, folks, you people out there in blog TV and Stick'em land. 3 minutes. I'm sure your attention span is that long that you can actually do that. So I want you to talk us through this process and how you actually came to work it out that hey, this thing works for me, and now it works for my clients.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I call it 3x3 meditation. So it's 3 minutes, 3 times a day. And I did not invent it on purpose. I never intended to create this. I never intended to be a meditator, or, I didn't even know what that meant. But what happened after I had hit rock bottom emotionally is I entered an addiction recovery program, and I was in that program for a year. And I chose a woman to mentor me who, when she would tell her stories of her rough days, I was like, oh my gosh, if you can do this, I can do this. Like she was so inspiring to me, and I wanted what she had. So I trusted her implicitly. I trusted everything what she told me. And one of the first things she told me to do was to learn to meditate. And she told me to sit still for 20 minutes every morning. And I remember just looking at her like, what? Like, don't you see what this is a bigger problem than sitting still for 20 minutes. Like, what on earth is that going to even do? That doesn't even make sense. So, but I trusted her because I had no other options. I was really at a rock bottom point, and I had no other ideas, answers. I tried everything else. That's the only reason I even did this. So I said, okay, I will do this. I will sit for 20 minutes every morning. If she says it's going to work, maybe it will. And when I tried to sit for 20 minutes, I physically couldn't. Like I was still detoxing from alcohol. My negative thoughts were like so horrific. I couldn't sit still with them, especially without being able to soothe them away by drinking. So, but I figured out that I could sit kind of still for about 3 minutes. But because she had told me 20 minutes, I did 3 minutes a few times a day so I could, make up her 20-minute quota. And that's how it took about, I think, 2 months, like 8 weeks or so, before I really had a breakthrough to validate, this is working here. So I was doing 3x3 I was doing it 5 or 6 times a day. And, maybe a few weeks into that, it just kind of got down to 3 minutes 3 times a day. It just was like I was rolling with it. I wasn't inventing this on purpose or anything. This is just how it kind of evolved. And a couple months into it is when I had my first experience in what I call like a higher consciousness state. I was deeply grounded, but I was so aware of how peaceful the world can be with no mind chatter. I had no words in my head for 3 whole days, and that had never happened before. I didn't even realize that was possible, to have that kind of like mental, inner, emotional peace, you know? And I knew from that point, because that was people that understand my experience during those 3 days are people who have had like a near-death experience, because I literally felt like I was kind of outside of my body, tethered to it, but kind of outside of it. I know it sounds kind of weird, but that was how I experienced that at the time. And I was still living my everyday life, but I had a perspective. It's like I call it like a big me and a little me. And my conscious awareness was kind of above and behind my body. And I was watching myself going through everyday life and thinking, wow, I talk a lot. Like, you're not, I'm telling jokes, I'm trying to make friends. And I'm just thinking, like, not so many words are needed. Like, we have so much other ways we can communicate. And I just remember looking down at my little chatty self and just thinking it was so cute. It was almost like watching a child, like, just trying to figure it out, But from that state, that was the experience that broke me open, because I was still grounded. I was still in my, physical form and stuff, I was still in my body. But I realized that there is a whole nother dimension or perspective or whatever you want to call it that we can access while we are here on this physical earth. And from learning that, I realized that there's no such thing as time. Like, we're always worried about time. All we ever have is the present moment. And that sounds so trite to say. All we have is the present moment. You could say that a million times and it won't hit me until I have that experience. And it's like, you know what? That's absolutely right. I only have one moment now, and there's probably a best thing to do, person to call, food to eat. Like, there's a best thing for me to be doing in every moment to, for the highest good of all involved. And that became kind of like what I just started looking at life from a broader perspective. It's like, I want to be as happy and fulfilled and uplifting to others around me as possible. And that comes from being centered and connected and present and not buried in the mind chatter, in the present moment. So that's what kind of put me over that was the experience that solidified it to me, that all I had to do was 3 minutes several times a day.
Okay, when you're doing that, it's a nice place to be centered, and I understand what you're saying, because when a person meditates regularly, that is one of the places where it's almost like it's a refuge from the rest of the world sometimes. Yeah. So, and that is the place where you got your sense of, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, which is basically now you're coaching people to do this, so they get a sense of themselves. And these people come to you with all sorts of, I guess, not problems, but challenges that they want to have, better health. They want to have more money in the bank. They want to get that special relationship. And you're saying it's all underpinned by this one activity that takes 3 minutes, 3 times a day. Is that right? Yes or no?
Yes, that is right.
All right, you heard it here, folks. That's all you need to do. 3 minutes, 3 times a day. It can't be that hard. And to then say, I don't have time, my challenge to the people who are listening would be, are you sure you know what you really want in life? If this is what you want, then 3 minutes, 3 times a day isn't going to break the bank, is it?
That's true. That's true. And it can really switch. I mean, there's a couple reasons why 3x3 meditation is so effective. There's a gentleman I interviewed in my book, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and in his field, he's very well regarded and well respected. He's a cell biologist. And I started my interview with him, and I just said, listen, all I do is meditate for 3 minutes, 3 times a day, and I've been able to drop weight. I don't have these addiction cravings anymore. I lowered my cholesterol. Like, people treat me differently than they did. How does this happen in 3 minutes, 3 times a day? And I said, do you think I'm nuts? I said that right up front because half of me thought he might think I was nuts. And he laughed when I asked him that question, and he goes, I think you're doing one of the most effective things you could possibly do, because the way he explained it to me was that we have a subconscious programming, and that's what I was talking about, like these decisions that we make when we're children, or opinions that we have about how food's going to affect our body, or how a certain person's going to react to us. We already have like a projection of what might happen, and we don't even realize it. It's totally subconscious. So we have like this subconscious tape going all the time, and we can hear it in our mind chatter and see it in predictable events and that sort of thing. Well, what he told me I was doing was constantly and consistently like cutting that subconscious tape. So more so than just a longer meditation, like, because when I work with clients who already have a meditation practice in place, I don't ask them to change it. 3x3 works for me, but I don't think it's like the universal, there's different things for different people for sure. But I've seen that, I've seen two things. One, for people that have a hard time meditating, 3x3 is very doable and realistic for them, and they can get results. And the second thing is that even if people have a meditation practice where they have like 10 minutes or an hour or even more than that in the morning, or in the, a certain time of day that they dedicate to meditating, they can add 2 more 3 minutes throughout the day and get better results. To me, meditation isn't something to check off the to-do list. Like if I get up in the morning and it's like, okay, go to the gym, shower, eat breakfast, meditate, check off the list. To me, meditation isn't something to check off the list. It's a state of being. It's a state of mind. And as I meditate a couple of times throughout the day, it returns me to that state of mind. And I actually start to keep that state of mind for a longer period. So in the middle of my I was working at a real estate company at the time, and it was so super busy. Like half the time I would skip lunch just because I forgot about it. The phones were busy, and, I would never take a break because it was so busy. When I first started this meditation practice, I would make time to go out and hide in my car or hide in the restroom or whatever. I would find somewhere to go and hide and do this. And I discovered that when I did that, I would come back feeling refreshed and centered and a lot more productive and at ease than if I hadn't made time to take those 3 minutes. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I look at it as skipping a meal, because if you're thinking I'm so busy, I have so much to do, and I skip breakfast and I skip lunch, by the end of the day you have no energy to do anything. It makes sense to take those breaks to nourish yourself, and that's what I'm doing when I'm doing my 3x3 practice. So if for people with longer meditation practices, and even when I do, sometimes I'll sit for 10 minutes, not a lot, usually I just do my 3, but sometimes it's really wonderful and I sit for longer than I normally would. And I think of it as like swimming laps over the pool. Like it's really soothing. You're doing something wonderful for yourself and for your body and for your mindset. And those other meditations are like just doing the deep dive, touching bottom and coming back up. You don't have to stay long at the bottom, but you do have to touch it, and then you can come back up.
That's a great way of describing it, a metaphor, and also the fact that if people are skeptical about this, you folks out there, just realize that, as in Dana's case, what she talked about, lowering your cholesterol, getting better sense of your health, and being in a better shape physically, let alone emotionally and mentally, and in your case too, sort of losing the food addiction or the alcohol addiction and the like. It's so powerful, and it's just so easy to do. So my question is, why don't people do it?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons. One is because it's so simple, you miss it. So many people that I start out with, like when I first start coaching people, I do daily email accountability for the first 30 days. Because it's so easy to say, oh yeah, I'm gung-ho, 3 minutes, 3 times a day. And then the first day you might forget one of them. And the second day you're thinking, well, to fall off of it. And it's, that's why I make it a priority that they check in with me, like, did you do it? How'd it go? That sort of thing. But so that's the thing. Like, people don't believe that something so simple could make such significant results. So I think that is the reason that a lot of people kind of miss it. And then it's also, I think the thing too, another reason, like when I do my own 3x3 or when I coach other people, I take it 7 days at a time. And I know that it takes however many, like 28 days or something to break a habit. I realize that 7 days isn't enough to accomplish everything in the world that you want to accomplish. But it's the same reason that a lot of people fall off their New Year's resolutions, me being one of them. Like I would always make perfectionist, like I would always make 512 New Year's resolutions, and I was going to be perfect, and I was never even going to, think a curse word anymore, and I was going to eat perfectly salads every day, and then by, day 17, you're like, what were my resolutions again? Like, maybe I should join the gym by now. You get so gung-ho, but motivation will only take you so far. Motivation is like using your willpower, picking yourself up by the bootstraps, like I can do this even in the fit, like I'm going to put on my suit of armor and I'm going to get it done. That'll work for a certain amount of time, but if you don't get truly inspired to do it, if it doesn't come from within and you wake up wanting to meditate or wanting to go to yoga class, the willpower is not going to last very long because it's not tethered to anything that's meaningful for you. So with 3x3, like when I do it for 7 days at a time, it's because it gets you to play full out with it. So you can play, most people agree, I can play full out for 7 days. I can join a gym and be good for 7 days and go. I can cut out sugar from my diet. I bet I could do it for 7 days. Whatever your resolution is. I'm not saying that's what I do. I'm just using examples. So, but like to analogize that to 3x3 meditation, it's like, okay, I can play full out for 7 days. And if by day 3 or 4, it's hard and I don't feel like doing it anymore and I just want to quit and give up, I tell myself, I'm only doing this for 3 or 4 more days. At the end of 7 days, I don't have to do this anymore, but play full out for those 7 days, because that's where we don't get the resolutions done. It's because we're not playing full out. And if you take it on and you say, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life or for the rest of the year or even for the rest of the month, it's too much. It's too much. But if we break it down into something manageable and then check in after 7 days, I've never seen, I'm going to say like never not, there's too many, okay, every single client that I've worked with that's played full out for 7 days has had a shift in mindset regarding what they were, their goal to accomplish, even in as little as 7 days. And it's because you play full out. That's why. That's what it's, the power of focus is one of the most amazing things we have as human beings. And a lot of people, we don't harness it enough. We don't harness our power of focus. We think multitasking, getting all these things done at once. For me, it's actually more effective to lose myself completely in something, and it's very satisfying, to immerse yourself in an activity in so much so that you lose time with it. Like that power of focus, when you really learn to harness that, is an extremely satisfying way to live. And that's why I break it down so it's, 7 days at a time, because it's much more manageable and you start to see like, this is how it works. Yeah,
wow.
But I think
that's phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really effective.
It is true. So what you're saying is actually applicable for every facet of your life. There's a comment here in the chat room. It says, when I ask the question, why don't people meditate? It's because people are looking outside of themselves, and basically that's you're confirming that, isn't it? That we all tend to want to look outside for the answer, and the answer outside may be in the form of alcohol, food, relationships, or constant changing of partners, kind of thing. This is a rhetorical question. Tell me, why do you think, as a society, we are so driven to an outward sense of focus rather than turning inside and saying, actually, the answers are here. We just haven't tapped into it. It's like, you've got a drawer full of socks and you're going out looking for socks when you've got a whole drawer full at home.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I mean, you could make the same analogy with, we all know that eating better and exercise would be better for us, but we don't do it. It's not because we don't have the lack of knowledge. It's because we don't have the inspiration. We don't have the knowledge that this would work. We don't have because true inspiration is when you wake up in the morning and it's like, I really want to go for a run. Like it would actually, if someone told me it was raining or whatever was going to prevent me from going running or something, that would hurt. I wouldn't like that. So, I'm using that analogy with working out, and the same thing with what you're saying about looking at outside circumstances, I think that makes sense, because logically A plus B equals C. If that guy smiles at me and I smile, oh, I connect, that guy made me happy because he held the door for me or he smiled at me. So it makes sense that we think our circumstances are what what fills us up inside. I understand why people say that. But to make I love analogies. Here comes another one. But an analogy that I always say, it's kind of like when people believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. We're using our senses. We're using our eyes. Like, it doesn't feel like we're moving. The sun is moving across the sky. The moon is moving across the sky, and it doesn't feel like I'm moving. To me, in my body with 5 senses, it seems like a fact that the sun revolves around the Earth. I mean, doesn't that make sense? That's my experience. The sun moves the sky. But see, we know, even though we might not have that, I've never been to outer space, but I believe the people that have seen from broader perspective, I believe now that the sun is the middle and the planets revolve around it. I can understand that the Earth isn't the center of the universe. So what I'm saying is, even though it seems like the circumstances are what's affecting our lives, that's not true. I mean, think about a time when you were in a particularly good mood, and say that, I'm going to use an example, say that drivers sometimes get to you, or long lines really get to you, and you happen to be in a particularly good mood, and you're driving and some guy cuts you off and you like barely notice it. It's like it's not even on your radar because you're feeling happy within yourself, and so something that might normally annoy you doesn't. Or you're in a really good mood and you stop at the grocery store and there's a really long line, but there's a magazine you've been waiting for and it's on the newsstand, and you're kind of like, oh, I'm glad I have this extra, 8 minutes to be able to take a look at this magazine. Like, you can see back in your own life exact same circumstances have occurred to you, and you have had a different reaction to them. Like most people could probably come up with something like that where they say, yeah, I was in a different mood and that didn't bother me. Or, so you can look back to your examples in life, but we so often get caught up with like that fact. It looks like the sun moves across the sky, and that's what I believe about it. But if you look at it from the bigger perspective and you kind of just tap back, and it's like, wait a minute, my experience was because I was particularly happy that day, or centered in myself at that point, and therefore that circumstance didn't rile me up like it used to. Like all of that power. It's what you were saying. All your stuff is all your powers in your own backyard, and plugging it into circumstances and trying to change them. I mean, like, there's endless circumstances. There are endless people. It's a lot of work to try and manipulate everything to be to your liking so that you can feel good. You might as well figure out how to get that power cord plugged into the one place it was meant to be plugged in, and go from there and let circumstances, be what they will. That's one thing I love to think in myself, sometimes while I'm meditating or even while I'm driving. It's like, nothing needs to change for me to be okay. Nothing needs to change. The people around me don't need to change. Nothing about my life needs to change. Nothing about my living situation needs to change so that I can be okay. And that's true freedom. That's freedom.
Fantastic, because basically you're tapping into your own source to support you. Because, like you say, circumstances can be really crap. Okay, you might lose accounts, you might lose your job, you might get more bills than you think you can pay. That sort of a thing with the stresses. So by meditating, it's a way of accessing a sense of peace and calm, so that you don't go around tearing your hair out or do something that's not going to be helpful to you, like hit the bottle. But also it gives you the capacity to think creatively as to how to increase your resourcefulness, which is what you do with your clients, don't you? Because people will come to you with money problems as well, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, money it's so funny, because the way I look at money, and not everybody looks at it this way, but I think about, like even just thousands of years ago, there weren't billions of dollars on this planet. Like that was generated. People invented that. Like that's a creation that happened. It's not a finite resource. It's an energy. it's an energy. And yes, it manifests in physical bills and stuff like that, but money is in essence an energy. And if we align our mindsets with it, because that's the thing, like I always had this thing that I never wanted to have more money than I needed. When I was working in nonprofit, if I had $8 extra at the end of the week, I would give it away because I felt guilty taking from someone else that needs it more than I do, you know? But the way I look at money today is very differently. It's, you know, like to be spiritual and to be wealthy is not inconsistent. But I always thought it was my old way of thinking. But I don't think that necessarily if you're rich, it means you're spiritual and that's how you got rich. But if you are spiritual and you are connected and you realize that the material world is just an extension of our spiritual energy. You know, money isn't evil and there's no lack. Even though it looks like there's lack, it's what people draw to themselves based on the attitude that they hold towards money. If you believe money is bad and you don't want to have extra money like I used to be, I would give it away. I didn't want anything to do with any extra money that I felt like money was evil or dirty or something like that, and I didn't want to have any that I didn't want. But now I just feel like money is an energy, and the more that I'm spending and contributing to the economy, it's like the more love that I share, the more happiness that I share, whatever I'm giving away comes back to me in, you know, even in more that way. So money, more than anything, more than being hard work, more than getting lucky or finding the right career or hitting those lotto numbers, more than anything, it's a mindset. Because you can't draw something into your life that you're not a match to, you know, that you're not a mindset match to. Your mindset, your attitude that you're holding, people say the vibration of your being, you're either attracting or repelling anything, including money, including a soulmate, including clients, you know, like including anything. And money is just one of those things that you're either attracting or you're repelling.
Okay, and you're saying that by going into this 3x3 meditation, you at least get to a place where you understand if you're not attracting money, what's going on and how you can change that kind of vibration, thinking, etc. Yeah?
Yeah. One of the things I think is important is like we have beliefs or attitudes that we might not even realize that we're holding. So something that I've encouraged people to do before and I've done myself is like become, like Eckhart Tolle in his book, The Power of Now, he says, become the watcher of your thoughts. I know you like that book too, huh?
Love it.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, I know. Become a watcher of your thoughts. So what I would do is just kind of go around the day and notice the thoughts that are occurring to you as you walk by, like, you know, some nice shoes that you might see. And the thought that occurs to you is, I can never afford that. Or, you know, rich people, drug dealers are the only people that can afford that. Or, you know what I mean? Like you just have these attitudes or preconceptions or notions of what money means, or there being negative energy about money. And if money doesn't feel like something that you can breathe in and out, that you don't have any baggage about, you know, think about something in your life that you achieve easily. You know, maybe it's maybe you have great body weight, you know, like a great body image, you're totally in shape and that's effortless for you, but you have no money, you know. So it's like, what about your mindset about your body is working for you, and how could you see what about your mindset about money isn't working for you? You know, and you can just notice those thoughts throughout the day. And I've gone so far as to keep a little journal, because I was like, that thought has occurred to me at least 20 times today. That's insane. You know, like I've thought at least 20 times about some kind of negative thought about money. And if I'm thinking negatively about anything, that is not going to bring it into my experience, you know. So becoming the watcher of your thoughts and realizing your thoughts aren't necessarily facts, they're just beliefs that you're holding, and beliefs that can be changed and can be massaged out and can be, you know, for me, the thoughts that are occurring in my head are just a symptom how connected or disconnected I am from my higher self. The more connected I am, the less negative thoughts I tend to experience. You know, so if I'm experiencing a high level of negative thoughts, I just use it. I don't entertain the thoughts like, oh, that must mean this. And because you can get into a whole mind spin tornado about all the thoughts going into your head. But I tend to try and keep my space around negative thoughts, and I don't entertain the content of them. I just realize, like, that thought isn't feeling so well. That thought isn't hitting me so good. That thought doesn't make me feel abundant or healthy or wealthy. That thought isn't making me feel great. And so it must not be in alignment with how my highest self is, perceiving the world. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and so now that if somebody's got to that stage, and you can only do that when you stop the chatter and the external stimuli that we seem to be so immersed in our culture, so that basically I even go as far as to say, when you're driving in your car, turn off the radio and just sit in silence in the car. Some people freak out at that because they certainly get to hear their thoughts finally, and it's not being drowned out by the music. Like you say, the thoughts are working in a subconscious level, and your 3x3 is a way of basically breaking that cycle. Now, so if you get somebody who says to you, yeah, okay, I get it that, my thoughts are about money, let's say, aren't that helpful to me, and that's why I'm having this recurring pattern. When you say you massage out of your subconscious, what do you really mean by that?
So if you were particularly working on money mindset, for like if I was coaching someone, for the first 7 or 14 days, you just work on the ability to quiet the mind. Because if you don't have that, you don't have anything. So it's not like you're starting with money mindset on day 1. You've got to lay the foundation. But then after the foundation is laid and you can really kind of get to the point of, all right, I'm ready to understand this. The first step is being aware. Because if you don't know these negative thoughts are sabotaging you, you can't get them, you've got to recognize them. And that's where that little journal activity comes in. And it's not to make you feel bad that you've had 512 negative thoughts about money today or, whatever. It's not that at all. It's just to realize, like, oh my gosh, I've got this vibe going on that I didn't even realize. So then you can, what I'm saying about massaging the thoughts is once you get comfortable, not identified with the thoughts, but just noticing that they're there, you can spend your 3x3. Like, I love spending my 3x3 in a pure visualization of the life that I'm looking to live. So if it's a dream house that I'm creating, it's like I'm giving myself permission to live in the fantasy for 3 minutes. And I understand, I don't let myself even wonder, how is that going to happen? I'm like, oh, this is my fantasy time. Because visualization, when you can really hold and the belief that you can achieve that, that's what'll draw it into your experience. But in the beginning, it's going to just feel like a fantasy, but it's going to feel good. And when you have that feel-good emotion, that's very powerful. And then when negative thoughts are occurring to you, like this is what I do with the 7-day thing. If a negative thought occurs to me and I can journal it or write it down just to kind of, when I write the negative thought down, it almost takes the power out of it. It's like I caught you, like you didn't get me, I got you, So like it doesn't have that same power because you've written it down. And it could be the same negative thought and you've got 35 tick marks next to it, because that's how many times it's occurred to you. But it takes the power out of it just to put it down on paper or somehow, and then I tell myself, if a thought is really bugging me, I tell myself for 7 days, I'm not going to worry about that. In 8 days, I can worry about that. So a week from tomorrow, I will worry about that, but not before. So that will help keep my mind clear for those 7 days. And after 7 days has gone by, usually I feel a lot differently, or that thought isn't bothering me anymore, but you have to trick yourself into not letting yourself think about it. And a really good way to do that is to say, I'm on a thought fast. I'm not thinking negative thoughts about money this week. Oh, wait, that was a negative thought about money. Okay, I'll write it down so I don't forget to think about it a week from tomorrow, so that's the massage technique that I use. You have to get used to it, but it really works well for me, especially when I'm playing full out in those 7 days. It's like, I just have to do this 3 more days, and then these negative thoughts, I don't have to be as vigilant about them. It's okay. It's okay, but that's kind of the trick with it, because I think a lot of people get stuck in thinking, in believing they can't have a negative thought occur to them, because that keeps you feeling resistance. You can either feel relaxed and at ease within your body, or you can feel tense and with resistance in your body. And if you're finding that money is bringing up more resistance than it is a feeling of relaxation, there's something going on in that vibration. There are thoughts and beliefs being held there that it would do well for you to uncover and realize like what they are. Not that you have to dig deep and understand them, but a lot of times just bringing them to the light and recognizing them will help with that. Let them be there. It's no problem, but just let them, you'll think about them a week from tomorrow.
Well, that's a great way of doing that. Thank you for sharing that, because a lot of people, the thing about when you're told, don't think about the pink elephant, immediately, what do? You think the pink elephant. So you're saying that we're actually going to schedule it, that we're going to think about it then, but not for the coming 7 days. That's a brilliant way of looking at it. So your book, Madly Chasing Peace, How I Went From Hell to Happy in 9 Minutes a Day, that's real, and she's done it, and she's living proof. So do you want to hold that book up so that people
I
can
have it here. Yeah.
Cool.
There it is. Yeah.
Okay, and where can they find it? On Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and it's around the world. I've gotten feedback from people in many countries. It's amazing. It's so amazing to see your words travel through. Oh, it's crazy. It's great.
Okay, the fact that it's being picked up by a lot of people who are reading it, it obviously says there is a tremendous need in this time and this place and in our culture that people are just crying out for just a bit of peace and quiet in their own selves, so that they can, you can think straight, so you can be the person that you want to be without having all these, I guess, demands placed on ourselves, our time, our energy, and our attention. And as you've shown that you become the best version of yourself, and you show up as the best version of yourself for your friends, your family, co-workers, etc. And also it's good for your bank balance, isn't it?
It sure is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So
abundance in every area.
Abundance in every area simply because you went 3 by 3. It sounds like a piece of wood, but if you went to a hardware store, but really it's about 3 minutes, 3 times a day, and doing this without turning it into a painful ritual. It is one of those. It's like you say. It is mental hygiene. It is giving yourself food, and it's nourishing your soul. So. Now, anybody out there who's so taken by the fact Dina's shared so honestly, for a coaching session or to get your book, get you to sign their book for them, how can they get in touch with you?
Probably the easiest way is just through my website, which is madlychasingpeace.com, and I have little excerpts from the book and information about my coaching and everything. So, and if they buy the book, I would encourage everybody, because I did 9-minute bonus interviews with people that I consider to be thought leaders, and they're brilliant. I mean, these people just shared a lot with me. So if you happen to go out and get the book, come back to my website and, put your information where you purchased it from and all that, and listen to these interviews, because I interviewed some major thought leaders like Jack Canfield and Bob Proctor and Ariel Ford, and just people of great wisdom. And I want people to take advantage of that. If you invest in the book, I want that to be my gift to you for doing that.
It's very generous of you. And just
you
mentioned Jack Canfield, and it's a result of what you went through and through a series of circumstances that you have now been invited to co-present in one of his trainings. Is that right?
Well, yeah, the president of his company is Patty Aubrey. She's having a retreat coming up, and she's asked me to, bring my 3x3 method and teach it at the retreat. And Jack himself has talked about it. It's amazing. I can't even believe sometimes. I was listening to his call last month. He has like a global, call where people from all around the world can call in and listen for free. And he said the homework for everybody to do was to start a 3x3 meditation practice. And it was like, I mean, my message is so much bigger than I am, Laura. I just know that this is something that can really help for people that it resonates with. And it doesn't resonate with everybody, and that's fine. But for people it resonates with, it can really be powerful. And there's, people are really believing in the power of this. And it's magic to me. It's so amazing. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I think it will be very helpful to people who are in where you were before, which is at, they're almost like a wit's end, rock bottom. Hey, what else? I mean, I got nothing to lose. Give it 3 minutes, 3 times a day, 7 days minimum. And I bet I'll say it on the air now, that if they did it and did it with every intention of getting a result, they will get a result that they want. And then they can say, hey, I did it because I listened to what Dina Proctor had to say.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Look, you've been so generous with your time. Thank you for sharing that with us. And again, where can we get your book?
TheChasingPeace.com.
Okay, madlychasingpeace.com. And we look forward to hearing from everybody out there who does get that book and gets bonuses and also puts into practice what you've said. You are living, walking, talking, breathing proof that it does make a difference. You know, from where you've come from to where you are now. You're an amazing lady, and I'm very, very, very inspired to have, motivated by you. And I'm going to go out and do it myself.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. I so appreciate connecting with you. This has been amazing. There's nothing I like more than sharing my passion, and I get to do that. So thank you. Thank you.
Woo, very much. So on behalf of you and your mindset, we'd like to thank you, Dina Proctor. Have a great day. God bless.
You too.
Today's podcast is brought to you by ObesityHotline.com, the silent killer, providing support and encouragement in the prevention of this rising epidemic. Featuring the Body by Vi Challenge. Is there a quick answer to the question? Go to www.obesityhotline.com. You're watching and listening to Conscious Evolution Media, shifting global consciousness at